The glass shattered against marble like a gunshot. Everyone in the VIP lounge froze. Everyone except Naomi Chen, whose hand was still extended from where she'd just served what she thought was premium whiskey to the most dangerous man in Seattle. Except it wasn't whiskey. The amber liquid spreading across Dante Kang's $1,000 suit was laced with oleander extract, enough to kill a man twice his size within the hour. Naomi's blood turned to ice as she recognized the bottle. The one from the back shelf. The one explicitly marked with a red X. The one used for special clients who never complained about their service again. She'd grabbed the wrong bottle in the chaos of the Saturday night rush, and now she'd just poisoned the head of the Baeko clan, the Korean-American crime syndicate that controlled everything from the docks to the downtown high-rises. Dante's enforcers moved instantly, hands disappearing inside tailored jackets toward weapons. But their boss raised one elegant hand, stopping them cold. His eyes, dark as obsidian, sharp as surgical steel, locked onto Naomi's face. She watched him bring his whiskey-soaked fingers to his lips, tasting the liquid with the deliberation of a sommelier. The silence stretched like razor wire. "Oleander," he said quietly, his accent barely detectable beneath polished English. "Nerium oleander, specifically. Cardiac glycosides that mimic digoxin poisoning. Clever." His smile was beautiful and terrifying. "You have approximately 30 seconds to convince me why I shouldn't let my men throw you off this balcony." Naomi's mind raced. She could run. The emergency exit was 15 feet away. She could lie, claim ignorance, mechanical error, anything. Instead, she did something that surprised even herself. She looked Dante Kang directly in his predatory eyes and told him the truth. "Because I know where the antidote is," she said, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. "And because you have about 45 minutes before your heart rhythm becomes fatally irregular, so you can waste time killing me, or you can let me save your life. Your choice." The enforcers looked to their boss, awaiting orders. Dante studied Naomi with the intensity of a man cataloging prey. She was 5'7", dark-skinned, with natural hair twisted into an elegant updo that had taken her an hour to perfect. Her bartender's uniform, black slacks and a crisp white shirt, hid the lean muscle she'd built through years of surviving neighborhoods where being weak meant being prey. She didn't look like a killer, but then again, neither did the poison now coursing through his bloodstream. "Fascinating," Dante murmured, standing slowly. At 6'2", he towered over her, his presence filling the space like smoke. "You just confessed to attempting to murder me, and your negotiating position is that I need you alive." He tilted his head. "Either you're brilliantly calculating, or you're the most honest idiot I've ever met." "Does it matter?" Naomi shot back, surprised by her own audacity. "You're dying either way." Something flickered in Dante's expression, amusement perhaps, or respect. He gestured to his men. "Clear the floor, all of it. Nobody comes up here for the next hour." As they dispersed, he turned back to Naomi. "Show me this alleged antidote. If you're lying, what happens to you will make a simple fall from a balcony seem merciful." Naomi led him behind the bar, her hands shaking now that the immediate threat had passed. The back storage room was cramped, lined with bottles and supplies most patrons never saw. She knelt beside a locked cabinet, her fingers fumbling with the combination. Behind her, she could feel Dante's presence, could sense him watching her every movement with predatory focus. The cabinet opened. Inside, among various specialty ingredients her boss kept for the establishment's darker clientele, was a small medical kit. Naomi pulled out a vial of digoxin immune fab, the antidote to cardiac glycoside poisoning. Her hands were steadier now, muscle memory from her previous life kicking in. "Sit," she ordered, surprising herself again with the command. Even more surprising, Dante obeyed, settling onto a storage crate with the grace of a big cat. Naomi prepared the injection, her training returning despite 5 years away from medicine. She'd been a paramedic once, before the system chewed her up and spat her out, before she'd fled to the anonymity of bartending in establishments that didn't ask questions. "This will hurt," she warned, approaching with the needle, "and you'll feel worse before you feel better." "The binding process—" "I know how antidotes work," Dante interrupted, rolling up his sleeve to expose a forearm mapped with elegant tattoos, dragons and tigers rendered in traditional Korean style. "The question is, how does a bartender know? And why does she have access to antivenom for a poison she claims was accidentally served?" Naomi's hand paused. This was the moment. tell the truth and expose her past, or lie and hope he didn't investigate. But something in Dante's gaze told her he'd already started piecing it together, that her lies would only insult his intelligence. "I used to be a paramedic," she said quietly, administering the injection with practiced efficiency. "Emergency medicine. I've treated everything from cardiac arrest to oleander poisoning. There was an incident at a botanical garden once." She stepped back, disposing of the needle safely. "As for why this place has the antidote, you'd have to ask my boss. But given the clientele, I'm guessing it's not the first time someone's ordered a drink they didn't plan to survive." Dante's eyes narrowed. "Your boss? Vincent Cho?" Naomi nodded, suddenly realizing how much danger she was actually in. Vincent ran this establishment as a neutral ground for Seattle's various criminal organizations, a place where deals could be made and disputes could be settled without bloodshed. At least, that was the theory. The reality was messier, involving occasional accidents and the kind of backroom conversations that ended with people disappearing. "Interesting," Dante said softly, and Naomi couldn't tell if he meant her or the situation. He stood, testing his balance. The antidote was working, but it would take time to fully counteract the poison. "Vincent Cho has been skimming from my shipments for 6 months. I came here tonight to give him a chance to explain before I burned this place to the ground with him inside it." His smile was cold. "Instead, I nearly died from poisoned whiskey served by a former paramedic who just happened to have the exact antidote I needed." The pieces clicked together in Naomi's mind with horrible clarity. Vincent had tried to kill Dante Kang. The oleander-laced bottle had been prepared specifically for tonight, for this moment. And she'd been the unwitting delivery system. "I didn't know," she said quickly. "I swear, I just grabbed the wrong—" "I believe you," Dante interrupted, and the certainty in his voice surprised her. "If you'd known, you wouldn't have immediately offered the antidote. You would have run or finished the job." He moved closer, close enough that Naomi could smell his cologne, something expensive with notes of cedar and smoke. "Which presents me with an interesting dilemma." Naomi's heart hammered against her ribs. "What dilemma?" "Vincent Cho tried to kill me using you as his weapon. By rights, you should die along with him, sending a message about what happens to those who attempt to assassinate the Beko clan's leadership." Dante's hand moved to her chin, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. The touch was surprisingly gentle. "But you also saved my life, demonstrated remarkable composure under pressure, and possess skills that are valuable." "I don't understand," Naomi whispered, though part of her was beginning to. "I'm offering you a choice," Dante said, his thumb brushing her jawline with disturbing intimacy. "Option 1, I let you walk out of here. You disappear, change your name, start over somewhere Vincent Cho and his associates will never find you. You live, but you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. And option 2, his smile was dark velvet wrapped around steel. Option 2, you work for me. Use those medical skills, that steady hand, that fascinating combination of competence and audacity. You become part of my organization, under my protection. You'll be safe from Vincent's revenge, comfortable beyond anything you've known, and you'll never have to pretend to be less than you are again." Naomi stared at him, her mind reeling. This was insane. He was offering her a position in a criminal empire, recruitment via attempted murder and subsequent life-saving. Every rational part of her brain screamed to take option 1, to run and never look back. But rationality had never gotten her anywhere. Rationality had left her broken and broke, working dead-end jobs and avoiding her own potential because the world had decided she wasn't worth investing in. Meanwhile, this man, this beautiful, dangerous man, was looking at her like she was valuable, like she was worth something. "If I choose option 2, Naomi said carefully, "what exactly would I be doing? Because I should tell you, I don't hurt people. Not anymore." "You'd be keeping people alive," Dante replied. "My people. We operate in a dangerous world, Miss Chen. Injuries happen. Having someone with your skills available, someone discreet, someone who won't ask questions or report to authorities, that's worth more than you realize. You want me to be your personal medic? I want you to be whatever you're capable of becoming," Dante said, and there was something in his voice that made Naomi's breath catch. "I have a sense about people, about potential. And you, Naomi Chen." He stepped even closer, invading her space completely. "You're wasted here, serving drinks to people who don't even see you. I see you. I see what you could be." The words shouldn't have affected her. They were manipulation, obviously, a recruitment tactic from a crime lord, who probably said whatever necessary to acquire useful assets. But standing there in the cramped storage room, with poison and antidote, and possibility hanging in the air between them, Naomi felt something shift inside her chest. For 5 years she'd been invisible, safe and small and unremarkable, and she'd been miserable. 3 conditions, she heard herself say. 1, I don't kill anyone. Ever. 2, I can walk away if it becomes too much. And 3, you tell me the truth about what working for you really means. No romanticized criminal enterprise bullshit. The real truth. Dante's smile widened, genuine pleasure lighting his features. Agreed. Agreed and agreed. Though I should warn you, the real truth is often more disturbing than the romanticized version. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Naomi looked at his hand. Elegant fingers, calloused palms, the tattoos extending from beneath his rolled sleeve. This was the moment. Accept, and her life would never be the same. Decline, and she'd spend the rest of her existence wondering what she'd missed. She took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and absolutely certain. Good, Dante said, something predatory sliding behind his eyes. Because Vincent Cho will be arriving shortly for our scheduled meeting, and I'm going to need you to watch very carefully what happens next. Consider it your orientation. Vincent Cho arrived 20 minutes later, flanked by his usual security detail. 2 men whose bulk suggested steroid use, and whose blank expressions suggested loyalty bought with violence. He swept into the VIP lounge with the confidence of someone who owned the space, not realizing he'd already lost it. Naomi watched from the shadows where Dante had positioned her, instructed to observe and learn. The main floor had been cleared as ordered, giving the impression of privacy, but Dante's enforcers lined the walls like well-dressed statues, their presence a silent promise of violence. Vincent's smile faltered when he saw Dante standing near the bar, very much alive and looking remarkably healthy for someone who should have been convulsing from cardiac arrest. His eyes darted to the shattered glass on the floor, the whiskey stain on Dante's jacket, then to Naomi partially visible in the background. "Mr. Kang," Vincent said, recovery impressive but not quite complete. "I apologize for the accident earlier. My bartender is usually more careful." "Your bartender," Dante interrupted softly, "saved my life. Which is unfortunate for you, Vincent, because it means we can have this conversation instead of you attending my funeral." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Vincent's security detail tensed, hands moving toward weapons. Dante's enforcers shifted in response, a choreographed threat that needed no words. "I don't know what you're talking about," Vincent tried, but his voice had lost its certainty. If there was some kind of misunderstanding, the oleander-laced whiskey wasn't a misunderstanding. Dante moved toward him with predatory grace. "The systematic skimming from my shipments wasn't a misunderstanding. The conversations you've been having with the Cheong family about potentially undermining my operations, those weren't misunderstandings either, Vincent. Those were choices." Naomi watched Vincent's face cycle through emotions. Denial, calculation, fear. She'd worked for him for 3 years, mixing drinks and staying invisible, never realizing the depth of the criminal enterprise surrounding her. Or perhaps she'd deliberately not looked too closely, protecting herself with ignorance. "You have 10 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't kill you right now," Dante said, his voice carrying none of the warmth he'd shown Naomi earlier. This was the man who controlled Seattle's underworld, who built an empire on fear and respect in equal measure. "And before you try lying again, understand that I already have all the evidence I need. This is courtesy, a chance to explain." Vincent's shoulders sagged slightly, the facade crumbling. "The Cheong family offered me a partnership, real ownership instead of managing your property. They said you were getting weak, too focused on legitimizing the business instead of protecting it." He laughed bitterly. "They promised me territory, respect. All I had to do was help them remove you." "And you believed them?" Dante sounded almost disappointed. "The Cheong family has eliminated every partner they've ever had. Once those partners outlived their usefulness, you would have been dead within 6 months." "Maybe," Vincent admitted, "but at least I would have died as my own man instead of your employee." The words hung in the air. Naomi understood the sentiment, the desire for autonomy, for recognition, for something beyond serving someone else's vision. She'd felt it herself, buried under years of survival and resignation. Maybe that's why Dante's offer had resonated so deeply. Not because she wanted to join a criminal organization, but because she wanted to stop being invisible. Dante was quiet for a long moment, studying Vincent with that intense gaze that seemed to see through pretense to truth beneath. Then he smiled, and it was the most frightening expression Naomi had ever seen. Beautiful and cold and absolutely merciless. "I respect ambition," Dante said softly. "I respect the desire to build something, to control your own fate. What I don't respect is betrayal, stupidity, or wasting my time." He gestured to his enforcers. "Vincent Cho, for the crimes of theft, attempted murder and conspiracy, I'm seizing all your assets and terminating your contract permanently." Vincent lunged then, desperation overriding self-preservation. His hand disappeared inside his jacket, emerging with a pistol that he swung toward Dante with surprising speed. Time crystallized. Naomi saw Dante's enforcers reaching for their weapons, saw Vincent's finger tightening on the trigger, saw the trajectory that would put a bullet through Dante's skull. Her body moved before her mind caught up. 5 years of emergency medical training had taught her to react instantly to crisis, to move toward danger instead of away from it. She crashed into Dante from the side, her shoulder driving into his ribs with enough force to knock them both to the ground. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space, the bullet passing through where Dante's head had been a fraction of a second earlier. Then chaos erupted. Dante's enforcers opened fire, their response coordinated and brutal. Vincent's security detail tried to return fire, but were outgunned and outmaneuvered. The whole encounter lasted less than 10 seconds. When silence fell again, Vincent and his men lay motionless on the expensive carpet, their blood mixing with spilled alcohol and broken glass. Naomi found herself pinned beneath Dante's body, his weight pressing her into the floor. She could feel his heart hammering against her chest, could smell gunpowder and cologne and something metallic that might have been fear or adrenaline. His face was inches from hers, his dark eyes wide with something she couldn't identify. "You just saved my life," he said quietly. "Again." "Apparently I'm making a habit of it," Naomi replied, her voice shakier than she wanted. The enormity of what just happened was starting to sink in. She'd watched men die, had caused their deaths indirectly by pushing Dante out of the bullet's path. Dante rolled off her, standing with fluid grace before offering his hand. She took it, letting him pull her to her feet. Around them, his enforcers were already moving with practiced efficiency, calling cleaners, securing the scene, removing evidence. This wasn't their first emergency cleanup. "Are you hurt?" Dante asked, his hands moving over her shoulders and arms with surprising gentleness, checking for injuries. "No, I'm fine, just—" Naomi gestured helplessly at the bodies, at the blood, at the surreal horror of the scene. "Is this normal? Is this what working for you means?" "Sometimes," Dante admitted, his honesty brutal. "I told you the truth would be disturbing. My world is violent, Naomi. People try to kill me regularly. People I trust betray me. And the consequences are permanent." He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "If you want to walk away, do it now. I won't hold you to our agreement. You've more than earned your freedom." This was her exit. Clean, clear, offered without manipulation or threat. She could leave, disappear into whatever life awaited her outside Dante Kang's orbit. Safe, small, invisible. "No," Naomi heard herself say. "I'm staying." Dante's expression shifted. Surprise, respect, something darker that might have been possessive satisfaction. "Why?" "Because for the first time in 5 years I feel alive," Naomi admitted, the words raw and honest. "Because you see me as something more than a bartender or a former paramedic who couldn't hack it. Because—" She trailed off, not quite ready to examine the other reasons, the ones that had nothing to do with careers or visibility, and everything to do with the way Dante looked at her like she was valuable, essential, worth protecting. "Because you want to see what you're capable of," Dante finished for her, understanding lighting his features. "Without the world's limitations, without playing small to make others comfortable." He smiled, and this time it was genuine, almost tender. "Good. Then let's begin your real education." The next 3 months transformed Naomi's existence completely. Dante moved her into a secured apartment in one of his downtown properties, a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound, furnished with minimalist elegance that spoke of wealth so profound it didn't need to announce itself. Her first morning there, she'd stood at those windows watching the sunrise paint the water gold. and realized she'd never lived anywhere she could describe as beautiful before. Her official role was medical consultant, which sounded legitimate until you understood what it meant. Naomi treated gunshot wounds in luxury hotel rooms at 3 in the morning. She administered stitches in the backs of moving vehicles. She kept men alive who would have died without her skills, men whose names she never learned and whose crimes she never asked about. It was emergency medicine without oversight, without regulations, without the bureaucratic constraints that had driven her from the field. It was also the most fulfilling work she'd ever done. "You're getting better at this," Dante observed one night, watching her treat a knife wound on one of his lieutenants. They were in a safe house across town, the kind of anonymous space that existed solely for moments like this. Faster, more confident. You're not second-guessing yourself anymore. Naomi focused on her suturing, her hands steady despite the unusual circumstances. "I'm just remembering what I used to know, before I convinced myself I wasn't good enough." "You were always good enough," Dante said quietly. "The world just didn't want to acknowledge it." She glanced up, meeting his gaze across the wounded lieutenant's body. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm over the past months, a partnership built on competence and trust that felt more intimate than anything Naomi had experienced before. Dante consulted her on medical matters, yes, but also on strategy, on personnel decisions, on the kind of operational questions that suggested he valued her judgment beyond her medical skills, and she'd been learning his world with frightening speed. How the drug trade operated through legitimate shipping companies, how money laundered through art galleries and real estate investments, how the Beko clan maintained control through a careful balance of violence and diplomacy, fear and respect. Dante had been honest about the darkness, but he'd also shown her the complexity, the codes of honor, the protection of innocence, the lines even criminals wouldn't cross. "There," Naomi said, finishing the last stitch and stepping back to examine her work. "Keep it clean, change the dressing daily, come back if there's any sign of infection. You'll have a scar, but you'll keep the arm." The lieutenant, a quiet man named Sung, who'd taken a blade defending one of Dante's shipments, nodded his thanks. "Better a scar than dead. You're good at this, Ms. Chen." "She's exceptional," Dante corrected, pride evident in his voice. "Which is why she's wasted on simple sutures. Come with me, Naomi, I want to show you something." They left Sung to rest, stepping out into the night. Dante's car waited, a sleek black sedan that whispered wealth and danger. He drove himself tonight, no security detail, which Naomi had learned meant he wanted privacy for something sensitive. "Where are we going?" she asked, as they navigated through downtown Seattle's glittering streets. "You'll see." Dante's smile was mysterious. "Consider it part of your continuing education." They drove to the waterfront, to a warehouse district where legitimate businesses closed at sunset and shadows took on weight and substance. Dante parked behind an unremarkable building, leading her through a series of security checkpoints, biometric scanners, armed guards, reinforced doors that belonged on bank vaults. The inner chamber took Naomi's breath away. It was a laboratory, equipped with state-of-the-art medical technology that would have made any hospital jealous. Surgical suites, diagnostic equipment, a pharmaceutical storage system that probably contained more controlled substances than most pharmacies, and in the center, coordinating it all, was an older Korean woman whose competent movements suggested decades of medical experience. "Dr. Park," Dante said, his tone respectful in a way Naomi rarely heard. "This is Naomi Chen, the consultant I mentioned." Dr. Park studied Naomi with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The former paramedic who saved your life twice in one night. I've heard about you." She extended her hand. "I run medical operations for the Beko clan. Treatment for our people, management of prescription supply chains, oversight of clinical research that can't be conducted through traditional channels. It's challenging, occasionally ethically complicated, and absolutely fascinating work." Naomi shook her hand, her mind reeling with implications. Clinical research? New pharmaceuticals, treatment protocols, applications that are years away from FDA approval, but could save lives now. Dr. Park gestured around the lab. "We're not monsters, Ms. Chen. We're pragmatists working outside a system that's too slow, too political, too concerned with liability to actually help people who need it most." It was seductive reasoning. Naomi could see how easily someone could justify the moral compromises, the illegal drug testing, the unapproved treatments, the complete absence of oversight or accountability. She could also see the potential good, treatments reaching people who couldn't afford or access traditional healthcare, research advancing without corporate profit motives, dictating every decision. "Why are you showing me this?" Naomi asked, looking between Dr. Park and Dante. "Because I want you to take over when I retire," Dr. Park said bluntly. "I'm 73 years old. I've been doing this work for 30 years, and I'm tired. I need a successor, someone brilliant, someone capable of moral flexibility, someone Mr. Kang trusts absolutely." She smiled. "You're not there yet. You need training, education, experience." "But Dr. Park's right," Dante added, his hand settling on Naomi's lower back with casual possessiveness that sent electricity up her spine. "You have the potential. I've watched you work these past 3 months. You're not just technically skilled, you're innovative, adaptable. You see solutions other people miss. That's rare, Naomi. That's valuable." Naomi's heart hammered. This wasn't just a job offer. This was a life trajectory. A complete transformation from invisible bartender to the head of a criminal medical empire. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt exhilarated. "What would the training involve?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Dr. Park's smile widened. "Everything. Advanced trauma surgery, pharmacology, research methodology. I'd teach you myself, supplement with carefully selected specialists who understand discretion. You'd learn not just medicine, but the business of medicine. Supply chains, distribution networks, how to operate outside traditional systems." She paused. "It would take years, and it would require absolute commitment." "Would I still work field medicine?" Naomi asked. "Still treat people in the moment?" "As much as you wanted," Dante answered. "Dr. Park manages operations but still handles emergency cases. You could structure the role however you wanted. I'm not interested in caging you, Naomi. I'm interested in letting you become everything you're capable of being." The words echoed what he'd said that first night, the promise that had made her take his hand. And looking around the laboratory, seeing the resources and technology and potential, Naomi realized he'd meant it. This wasn't about using her skills. This was about developing them beyond anything the legitimate world would have allowed. "I need time to think," she said finally. "Take all the time you need," Dante replied. "But know this. Whether you accept Dr. Park's offer or not, you're part of my organization now, part of my life. That doesn't change." The weight of those words settled over Naomi like a brand. She'd crossed too many lines, seen too much, become too entangled in Dante's world to ever return to who she'd been before. The realization should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like freedom. The decision came 2 weeks later, crystallized by an emergency that forced Naomi to confront exactly who she'd become. It was 3 a.m. when Dante's call came through, his voice tight with controlled urgency. "I need you, immediately. There's been an incident." Naomi was moving before he finished the sentence, grabbing her medical kit and meeting the car he'd sent within 5 minutes. The driver, a stone-faced enforcer named Lee, said nothing as they raced through empty streets toward the industrial waterfront, but his tension was palpable, infecting the vehicle with dread. They arrived at a shipping warehouse where chaos reigned. Dante's men were engaged in a firefight with rivals from the Cheong family, the same organization that had tried to recruit Vincent Cho. Bullets sparked off metal containers. Shouted commands in Korean and English echoed through the cavernous space. And in the center of it all, pinned down behind inadequate cover, was Dante. "He's hit," Lee said tersely, pointing to where Dante was clutching his side. Even from a distance, Naomi could see the blood staining his shirt. "Won't retreat. Won't let us call an ambulance, said to get you." "Of course he did," Naomi muttered, her mind already shifting into emergency mode. She assessed the situation with clinical detachment. Active firefight, inadequate cover, unknown number of assailants. Getting to Dante would be dangerous, not getting to him might be fatal. She made her decision in seconds. "Give me your vest," she ordered Lee. When he hesitated, she snapped, "Now! I'm no good to him dead." Lee stripped off his tactical vest with impressive speed. It was too large, designed for someone with his build rather than her smaller frame, but Naomi strapped it on anyway. She grabbed her medical kit, took a deep breath, and ran toward Dante's position. The world contracted to tunnel vision, her feet pounding concrete, her heart hammering against her ribs, the sharp crack of gunfire that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. A bullet sparked off a container inches from her head. She didn't slow. couldn't slow. Dante was bleeding out, and that was the only thing that mattered. She dove behind his cover, skidding across concrete and fetching up against his body with enough force to make them both grunt. Dante's eyes widened in shock and fury. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demanded, his hands immediately moving over her body, checking for injuries despite his own wound. "I told Lee to keep you safe. Shut up and let me work," Naomi interrupted, already cutting away his shirt to expose the injury. Gunshot wound, right side, entrance, but no exit. The bullet was still inside, possibly lodged against his spine or piercing his liver. Blood loss was significant but not immediately fatal. Yet. "I need to get you out of here," she said, her hands steady as she packed the wound with gauze. "Hospital, surgery, now." "Can't." Dante's voice was tight with pain. "The moment I leave, we lose position. The Cheong family will take the shipment and we'll look weak. Other families will see it as an opening." "You'll be dead," Naomi shot back, applying pressure that made him hiss through his teeth. "How's that for looking weak? Then keep me alive until we win." His hand caught hers, forcing her to meet his eyes. The intensity there stole her breath, absolute trust mixed with something deeper, darker, more complicated. "I know you can do this, Naomi." "I've always known." It was insane, treating a gunshot wound in the middle of a firefight with inadequate supplies and no backup. Every principle of emergency medicine screamed at her to evacuate and stabilize. But looking into Dante's eyes, seeing the absolute confidence there, Naomi felt something shift inside her chest. He believed in her, completely, without reservation. When had anyone ever trusted her capabilities so absolutely? "Fine," she said, her voice harder than she felt. "But you do exactly what I say. No heroics, no stupid masculine posturing. You're my patient now, and patients follow orders." Dante's smile was pained but genuine. "Yes, ma'am." Naomi worked with fierce concentration, blocking out the gunfire and shouted commands around them. She established an IV line for fluids and pain management, administered antibiotics to prevent infection, monitored his vitals with portable equipment. The bullet needed surgical removal, but she could stabilize him long enough for his men to secure the situation. "Talk to me," she ordered, keeping him conscious and alert. "How did this happen?" "Ambush," Dante managed, his voice steadier now that the pain medication was taking effect. "They've been tracking our shipments, waiting for an opening. Tonight they thought they'd found one." His laugh was bitter. "They underestimated my people's loyalty, and my doctor's skills." "I'm not a doctor," Naomi reminded him, checking his blood pressure, holding steady. "Good. You will be." Dante's hand found hers again, his grip surprisingly strong despite his injury. "After tonight, after you've saved my life in the middle of a war zone, you'll take Dr. Park's offer. You'll become exactly what I knew you could be. Awfully presumptuous for a man who's currently bleeding on my lap." "I'm always presumptuous. It's part of my charm." He winced as she adjusted his position. "But I'm also right. You're too good at this, Naomi, too skilled, too brave, too brilliant to keep pretending you're anything less than extraordinary." The words shouldn't have affected her. She was in crisis mode, focused solely on keeping him alive. But something in Dante's voice, the raw honesty beneath the pain, made her heart stutter. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. "Why invest so much in me when you could hire any number of qualified doctors?" "Because I don't want qualified doctors," Dante replied, his eyes locked on hers with disturbing intensity. "I want you. Your skills, yes. Your brilliance, absolutely. But also your honesty, your strength, your refusal to be less than you are even when it's dangerous." He paused. "I want you, Naomi Chen. All of you. In my organization, in my life, in my bed, if you'll have me. I've wanted that since the night you looked death in the face and chose to save my life instead of running." The confession hung between them, intimate despite their surroundings. Naomi's breath caught. She'd felt the connection growing between them over the past months, the casual touches that lasted too long, the conversations that stretched into early morning hours, the way they moved in perfect synchronization during emergencies. But she'd convinced herself it was professional respect, nothing more. Apparently, she'd been lying to herself. "We'll discuss this when you're not bleeding out," she said, her voice shakier than she wanted. "Promise me we'll discuss it," Dante pressed, his grip on her hand tightening. "Promise me you won't run from this." "I promise," Naomi whispered. The firefight ended 20 minutes later, with Dante's forces victorious. The Cheong family's assault team either dead or in retreat, leaving behind a shipment they'd tried to steal and a message about what happened to those who challenged the Baiko clan. Lee and the other enforcers secured the scene, while Naomi supervised Dante's transfer to the underground medical facility. Dr. Park was waiting, her experienced hands taking over the moment they arrive. "Out," she ordered Naomi. "I need space to work, and you're too emotionally involved to assist." Naomi wanted to argue but recognized the truth. Her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading, her professional detachment completely shattered. She retreated to the observation room, watching through reinforced glass as Dr. Park extracted the bullet and repaired internal damage with surgical precision. Hours passed. Dawn broke over Seattle, painting the city in shades of gold and rose that seemed inappropriate given the night's violence. Naomi stood at the observation window, her reflection ghostly in the glass, and realized she was crying. Not from fear or trauma, but from the overwhelming relief that Dante would survive, that she'd been good enough, skilled enough, brave enough to save him. When Dr. Park finally emerged, exhaustion evident in the set of her shoulders, she found Naomi still standing vigil. "He'll live," the older woman said without preamble. "Full recovery expected, though he'll need several weeks of rest and physical therapy." She studied Naomi with those sharp eyes. "You did well tonight. Better than well. You kept him stable through circumstances that would have killed most patients. That takes more than medical skill. It takes courage, composure, and an absolute refusal to accept failure." "I couldn't let him die," Naomi said simply. "No," Dr. Park agreed, understanding in her voice. "You couldn't, which is why you'll take my offer, train as my successor, and eventually run medical operations for the Baiko clan." It wasn't a question. Naomi met her gaze, saw the challenge there alongside the respect. This was the moment. Accept her transformation completely, or try to cling to who she'd been before Dante Kang entered her life. "Yes," she said, the word feeling like both surrender and victory. "I'll do it. I'll become what you need me to be." Dr. Park's smile was satisfied. "Good. We start tomorrow." "Well," she amended, "the day after tomorrow. First, you should see your patient. He's been asking for you since he woke up." Block 5. Dante's recovery room was softly lit, monitors beeping steadily alongside the bed. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by injury and medical equipment. But when his eyes opened and found Naomi standing in the doorway, the intensity returned. That laser focus that made her feel like the only person in the world. "You're still here," he said, his voice rough from anesthesia. "Where else would I be?" Naomi moved to his bedside, her professional instincts automatically checking his vitals, even though the machines were doing that work. "You're stuck with me now. I didn't save your life 3 times just to let you ruin my perfect record." 3 times, Dante repeated, humor lighting his features. "The oleander, the assassination attempt, tonight. I'm starting to think I keep you around purely for the medical intervention." "Is that all?" Naomi asked, emboldened by exhaustion and relief and the memory of his confession during the firefight. "Just the medical skills?" Dante's hand caught hers, pulling her closer despite the IV lines and monitoring wires. "You know it's not. You've known for weeks, maybe months. I'm not subtle, Naomi. I want you, not just as my doctor, not just as a valuable asset. I want you in every way a man can want a woman." "You're very direct," Naomi managed, her heart racing. "I'm a crime lord. Subtlety is for people who have time to waste." His thumb traced circles on her palm, the touch sending electricity up her arm. "But if you need me to court you properly, I will. Flowers, expensive dinners, whatever traditional romance requires. Just tell me you feel this too. Tell me I'm not imagining the connection between us." Naomi stared at their joined hands, her dark skin against his lighter tone, her delicate fingers intertwined with his stronger ones. A month ago she would have called this impossible. A crime lord and a former paramedic turned bartender from completely different worlds with nothing in common except violence and survival. But that wasn't true anymore. They'd built something together over the past months, a partnership forged in crisis and trust, respect and growing desire. Dante had seen her potential when the world dismissed her. He'd given her opportunities to be brilliant, to use her skills without apology or limitation. And somewhere in the midst of gunshot wounds and moral compromises, she'd fallen for him. "You're not imagining it," she admitted quietly. "I feel it too. Whatever this is between us." Love, Dante said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. It's called love, Naomi. I love you. Your brilliance, your courage, your refusal to be anything less than extraordinary. I love that you saved my life and then lectured me about following medical orders. I love that you're standing here having accepted a role most people would flee from, ready to become exactly what you're capable of being. The words should have been too much, too soon. They'd known each other only 3 months, but somehow, in the compressed intensity of their world, those 3 months felt like years. Every shared crisis, every moment of trust, every demonstration of competence and compatibility had accelerated their connection beyond normal timelines. I can't believe I'm saying this, Naomi whispered, but I love you too. It's insane, it's reckless, it's probably the worst decision I've ever made, but it's true. Dante's smile was incandescent, despite his injuries. Come here. Naomi carefully climbed onto the bed, mindful of his wounds and the medical equipment. She settled against his uninjured side, her head resting on his shoulder, their fingers still intertwined. It felt impossibly right, this moment of peace after such violence, this intimacy after months of professional distance. We're going to build something magnificent, Dante said, his lips against her hair. You'll run medical operations, save lives, push boundaries. I'll run the business, protect our people, expand our influence, and together we'll be unstoppable. Very romantic, Naomi teased, though his words sent pleasure through her chest. Most men promise dinner and roses. You're promising a criminal empire. Would you prefer dinner and roses? Honestly, no. Naomi tilted her head to look at him. I spent 5 years being invisible, playing small, accepting whatever the world thought I deserved. You've given me so much more than that. You've given me permission to be powerful, to be seen, to matter. That's worth more than any conventional romance. Good, Dante said, satisfaction evident in his voice. Because I'm not particularly conventional, and neither are you. We're going to scandalize everyone, Naomi. The Korean crime lord and his black American doctor. People will talk, speculate, disapprove. Let them, Naomi said firmly. She'd spent too long caring what others thought, letting their judgments limit her choices, no more. I don't need anyone's approval except yours and my own. They lay together in comfortable silence, watching dawn light strengthen beyond the medical facility's windows. Outside, Seattle was waking up, normal people starting normal days, completely unaware of the violence and transformation that had occurred while they slept. Naomi felt disconnected from that world now, as if she'd crossed into a different reality where rules were suggestions and power was currency. Dr. Park says we start training the day after tomorrow, Naomi said eventually. What should I expect? Everything, Dante replied. She'll work you harder than you've ever been worked before, but she'll also teach you more than any conventional medical program could, and at the end of it, you'll be one of the most skilled physicians in the world, legitimate credentials be damned. Will you be recovered by then? Ready to get back to running your empire? Our empire, Dante corrected gently. And yes, I heal fast, and I have excellent motivation. His arm tightened around her. I need to be strong enough to properly court the woman I love, to show her exactly what I'm offering. You've already shown me, Naomi said. She gestured vaguely at the medical facility, at the world beyond it that they inhabited together. This is enough, this is everything. But Dante shook his head. No, you deserve more than emergency rooms and underground facilities. You deserve recognition, celebration, proof that I value you beyond your utility. His voice lowered, becoming intimate despite their surroundings. I'm going to marry you, Naomi Chen. I'm going to make you my wife, my partner, my queen, and everyone in Seattle, legitimate and criminal alike, will know that you're mine and I'm yours. The declaration should have been possessive, controlling. Instead, it felt like liberation. Naomi had spent her whole life being invisible, irrelevant, easily dismissed. The idea of someone claiming her publicly, of announcing to the world that she mattered, was intoxicating. That's very presumptuous, she said, echoing her words from their first meeting, assuming I'll say yes. You will, Dante replied with absolute confidence. Because you're done being invisible, you're done accepting less than you deserve, and you know just as I do that together we're capable of extraordinary things. He was right. Naomi could feel it in her bones, The certainty that her life had irrevocably changed, that she'd stepped onto a path that would lead somewhere magnificent or terrible, possibly both. No more bartending in the shadows. No more pretending to be ordinary when she'd always known she was capable of more. "Ask me properly," she challenged. "If you're going to propose marriage, do it right." Dante's laugh was pained but genuine. "Now? While I'm lying in a hospital bed covered in bandages?" "Now," Naomi confirmed. "Because this is us. Violence and healing, darkness and love, always in the midst of chaos. If you're going to promise forever, do it here, in the reality we actually inhabit." Dante shifted carefully, his injuries making movement difficult, but he managed to bring their joined hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that was reverent despite their surroundings. "Naomi Chen," he said, his voice strong despite his weakened state. "Former paramedic, current miracle worker, future head of medical operations for the Baiko clan. You're brilliant, courageous, and absolutely terrifying. You've saved my life 3 times. You've transformed from invisible to indispensable in the span of 3 months, and I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone." He paused, his dark eyes locked on hers. "Marry me. Build this empire with me. Be my partner, my queen, my everything. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice when you took my hand that first night." Tears blurred Naomi's vision, emotions overwhelming her carefully maintained composure. This wasn't the proposal she'd imagined as a girl. No romance, no grand gesture, no promise of safety or normalcy. Instead, it was honest and dangerous and absolutely perfect. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you. I'll build this empire with you. I'll be your partner, your queen, your everything." She leaned in carefully, mindful of his injuries, and kissed him softly. "And you'll spend the rest of your life not regretting that you gave the invisible bartender a chance to be extraordinary." "No regrets," Dante promised against her lips. "Only possibilities." They sealed their engagement with another kiss, gentle despite the passion beneath. Outside, the city continued its normal rhythm, unaware that 2 damaged people had just promised each other forever, in the midst of blood and medical equipment and hard-won survival. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better, real, complex, forged in darkness rather than light. And as Naomi settled back against Dante's shoulder, his heart beating steadily beneath her ear, she realized something profound. She'd come to Seattle seeking anonymity, trying to disappear from a world that had broken her. Instead, she'd found visibility, power, love, and purpose in the last place anyone would expect, in the arms of a crime lord who saw her potential and refused to let her hide from it. 3 months ago, she'd been invisible. Now she was going to be queen, and she'd never felt more alive.